My wife Elaine had psychic abilities. Is it true? I was a skeptic at first too, but over the years we were together, the number of times she predicted something before it happened was too much to ignore. She knew who was calling before we picked up the phone. She would inexplicably tell me to take a different route on the highway, only to find that the first route was blocked. We put off shopping because she felt something would happen to the item, and it almost always did. We both believed that her psychic abilities were real. Elaine was also a prolific dreamer. Almost every morning she woke up eager to tell me about a dream or dreams she had had during the night. Some were funny, but some were frightening in their accuracy. It seemed that her dreams were another manifestation of her psychic abilities. We have learned to live with these gifts of hers. We got married, of course, and had 2 wonderful children, John and Mary. At the time of this story, they were both studying at university, leaving Elaine and I alone at home. It got interesting when I noticed that Elaine stopped jumping out of bed in the morning to tell me about her dreams. This went on for almost 2 weeks. "Lainey, you haven't told me about your nightly adventures in Dreamland lately." "What happened?" I asked at breakfast. "Oh," she answered, a little embarrassed. "They became too strange even for me. I don't think you need to hear them," she added. Now every husband knows that when someone says something like that, it's an invitation to push a little harder. "Come on, Lainey. I've listened to your dreams our entire married life. Why did you stop?" Because, she added hesitantly, "because you might not like what you hear." I said it, now please leave it." I was a little taken aback by this outburst of emotion from Elaine. It must have been very difficult for her to talk about it if she even considered not sharing. The themes of her dreams were always quite eclectic, so I never knew what I would hear each morning. But this was something completely unusual. A list of things she didn't like to talk about flashed through her head. Was this related to the death of her parents? With early fear when John was just born? With Mary's mysterious disappearance for one night when she was 18? With her ex-boyfriends? Although we often talked about them, as well as about my ex-girlfriends, at the beginning of our married life, I knew I had to leave it for now. I knew it would come up sooner or later, and all I had to do was be patient, like a good husband. Which, without further modesty, was basically what I was. I've been an accountant all my working life, and while the money I made wasn't fantastic, it was a stable and ongoing stream of income that kept us middle class. I could honestly say that I was a level-headed guy, slow to get annoyed but quick to find the funny in life. Our home was always filled with laughter and good-hearted jokes. When I had to be strict, I was strict. Raising 2 children has its difficult moments, as well as its moments of absolute joy. Elaine and I enjoyed a very comfortable relationship. After the white-hot ardor of our early marriage, we moved on to a calmer, implicit partnership, where the old passions flared up from time to time. We both accepted it. We talked about this change often, but agreed that we didn't regret anything in our lives. Money was fine, health was fine, the prospect of grandchildren in the future, and the ability to travel. Everything is fine. Of course, this dream really tormented Elaine. The non-telling continued for another 2 weeks until one morning, while I was preparing breakfast, she exploded and sat up straight. "Bill, I have to tell you about this dream. This is killing me." Elaine was almost in despair. We always discussed everything with each other. Sometimes the storytelling was awkward and caused heated discussions. My even-tempered personality perfectly balanced her emotional stories. Our arguments usually didn't last long until we found a compromise and started laughing at them or enjoying the love. I poured some coffee, waiting for the story to begin. This should be interesting, I thought. I saw that Elaine was very nervous and did that same hand rubbing that she always did when she wanted to concentrate on something. "Bill, I had a dream that I would see James before I died, before my life ends." Damn it, I thought. Does she have a premonition of her own death? This is new. Now I'm starting to worry. "Bill, I have the same dream every night. It becomes more and more urgent. I just can't get rid of it. You know who I'm talking about, don't you? James Sloop. A guy I met in New Zealand many years ago." Now she looked at me with those desperate eyes that I had rarely seen from Elaine. I knew James Sloop. I only met him once. It was the day after our wedding. The story is that when Elaine was 18, she and one of her friends joined a group that toured New Zealand's two main islands within 2 weeks. It was an exciting time for her. Elaine has traveled abroad many times before, but always with her parents. This was the first time she was practically alone. The tourism group was mainly of the camping type, where all travel was done by bus. Everyone spent a lot of time together on long bus trips. Although the group was not limited to 18-year-olds, this was the age of most of the participants. James was also in this group, and he and Elaine became very close during the tour. I didn't know Elaine that well then. We were in the same school. However, I saw photos of the tour later and could see that they were clearly close during that time. By the time I saw the photos, Elaine and I were already a couple, and I had to suppress the feelings of jealousy that tried to surface at the realization that the love of my life was now close, or maybe intimate, with another man. I had to rationalize it, realizing that it was in the past and the present was different. I also had old girlfriends, and I had to suppress these experiences too. I was a little annoyed when the day after our wedding we had to postpone our honeymoon until James came and gave us a wedding gift. I only agreed because all of Elaine's relatives insisted on it. He arrived on a late flight from New Zealand and could only arrive in the morning. He actually missed the wedding. Poor James, flying so far away and not seeing the wedding, Elaine's mother interjected. She knew about James and Elaine. More than me, apparently, but she was happy with our decision to get married. I always had the impression that Elaine's mother would be just as happy if Elaine married James. It was just a feeling, and never something said directly. They always treated me with the respect that a son-in-law deserved, and I always respected them. They were an easy family to get to know, and I loved them like my parents. A well-organized wedding celebration was extremely important to Elaine's mother, and for her the thought of someone flying so far away and not seeing the happy couple was almost unbearable. "Bill, you just have to wait a little longer. No need to rush. You will have the rest of your life together." Elaine and I waited. When the taxi from the airport pulled into the entrance, I noticed a very handsome figure of a man coming out of it. He was about my build with immaculate hair that was almost white. His face was almost childlike, without a single spot. I was amazed that he looked so elegant after such a long flight, but there he was. Elaine immediately ran to him. "You made it, James. I didn't think you could do it." My primal instinct to claim my woman began to rise, but the public nature of the situation and everyone's oohs and ahs calmed me somewhat. The greetings were very cordial and hugging. He gave a wedding gift, which was a leather bag, dear bag. Great, I thought. I'm sure I'll enjoy using it. Then we left, never seeing James again. Yes, Lainey, I remember James. So did your dreams explain why you needed to see him so urgently? I continued the conversation, trying to get Elaine to voice her dream. I have found in the past that getting her to do this helped calm the anxiety that some dreams caused. No, that's the weird thing, Bill. There was no reason other than a very strong feeling that I would see him before my life was over. It was a very real feeling, Bill. I have never experienced anything like this in my dreams. I'm not kidding about this. I have to go. This left me in a real quandary. I knew that Elaine's psychic abilities were a real and powerful part of her life, now our lives. The times when we acted on her intuition mostly turned out well for us. It's funny, but psychic abilities don't always tell the whole story. It's more like driving a car with a dirty windshield. You get glimpses of what's ahead. History is replete with examples of people who got into trouble because they relied only on intuition to make big life decisions. I knew I needed to slow down this sense of urgency and let it unfold slowly. We were both retired, so there were no physical barriers to going to New Zealand. After all, it was a country on our bucket list, and we were planning to go there in September, 9 months from now. I wondered if the discussion of this future trip had brought on the dream in the first place. But I had a nagging feeling that this was not a very good idea. Yes, I had premonitions too. Now that I'm older and my belly is bigger, My premonitions are bigger too. Ha! I walked up to her and hugged her. Lainey, I know you feel like this is a necessity right now, but let's wait. We were going there in September anyway, so are you willing to wait until then? She nodded. Looking into her eyes, I saw that she understood the logic of the expectation, but there was still this desperate need. The hug continued for quite some time until she seemed to calm down. I loved those hugs. They were always warm and cozy. I think over the years of our marriage, we have perfected the art of the perfect hug. September couldn't come fast enough for Elaine. From the moment of her revelation, she was possessed. She scoured all social media looking for James. She found him and found out where he lived. She knew his profile by heart. Married. 3 children, all adults. Divorced. Lives alone in Queenstown, South Island. What a coincidence. Queenstown was a place we were hoping to stay during our trip to New Zealand. She planned our trip carefully. Tickets have been purchased and hotels have been booked. She then texted him, telling him where we would be and when. Again, it bothered me a little, but I went with it because I knew how important it was to Elaine. She just needed to get this meeting out of her system. I knew from experience that if something didn't happen to give her closure, it would gnaw at her for months. Besides, I trusted Elaine. We were married for a long time, and she often said to me romantically, "Bill, I know that if I don't be with you, I'll just die. My life will end. You are my life and love." These words and many others like them strengthened my trust in her. She has proven time after time that she is a faithful partner. Elaine is a beautiful woman and often attracts curious glances from men. I've seen her in action many times, putting these men in their place and then making sure to emphasize our stable connection to them. I knew deep down that my trust in her was real. I'm not the kind of paranoid person who jumps to harsh conclusions at the slightest hint of something unusual. I'll leave this to those couples whose relationships are superficial and on the verge of breaking up. Plus, she only had one meeting with James on her schedule, so that wasn't the only reason for the trip. Maybe that was the reason that motivated us to make sure we actually went there, but we both had many other reasons for visiting. Air New Zealand landed in Queenstown with 2 very nervous passengers on board. Elaine was excited about all the activities planned, and I was really excited about skiing at the Remarkables and my trip to Glenorchy, where many of the Lord of the Rings scenes were filmed. I'm a fan of this series, and honestly, it was one of the main reasons I wanted to visit New Zealand. We settled into our hotel overlooking Lake Wakatipu, a very romantic view. Almost immediately, Elaine picked up the phone, trying to contact James. They got in touch and agreed to have dinner together that night. The evening went surprisingly well. James was the perfect gentleman all night and seemed to spend a lot of time with me. I realized that I even liked him. He seemed to know what to say and when to say it. He also knew when a topic had run its course and cleverly changed it. His childlike beauty as a teenager carried him well into adulthood. He looked at least 10 years younger than his age and was obviously in good shape. That head of blonde hair that I remembered from the first time I saw him many years ago now stood proudly on his head. He was dressed like a businessman. He radiated confidence. He knew what he was doing. Elaine was happy to remain in the shadow of our conversations most of the time, but I could see that she was listening carefully to his words. We talked about our families and how our retirement was going. Any anxiety about the meeting quickly disappeared, so at the end of the evening we agreed to meet again in 3 days. Uncle James had a vineyard in the Otago area, and it turns out Elaine and I both love Pinot Noir. One of Elaine's scheduled classes had to be canceled to fit into the schedule, but given the company and the opportunity, it seemed worth it. "James seems like a nice guy," I commented as I undressed in our hotel room that night. "He really knows how to captivate an audience. He's been fooling me all evening. He was a bit like a puppeteer, leading us down different paths at will. He would make a great used car salesman," I laughed, trying to keep the mood light. "So, Lainey, what do you think? Was it worth it?" He really was a great conversationalist, and you're right. He seemed to understand when to start a new topic of conversation. He read you like an open book, Bill. It was very interesting for me to watch you both. To answer your question, Yes, it was worth it. He has changed a lot since we knew each other when we were 18. He seems to have lost his aura of innocence, but I guess that happens to everyone as they age. I'm glad we took the time to meet him. Thanks, Bill. I love you. I really appreciate what you did for me. Now let's go to bed so we can show each other how much we love each other. I'll tell you the truth, Lainey, it wasn't that hard of a task tonight. I even liked this guy. Now, what about the bed? Skiing was planned for the next day. Elaine and I both love skiing. We are not very good at this, as our income did not allow us to travel to the world's ski resorts with the rich and famous. We put on layer upon layer of clothing to protect ourselves from the icy wind and queued up for the lift. I, in my foolishness, decided to try the medium slope for those with some skill level, while Elaine, wisely, chose the easy slope. It was probably a man's thing. The skiing at the Remarkables was truly amazing. The scenery was breathtaking, especially with the city of Queenstown visible in the distance. I started my descent and didn't immediately notice that there weren't many skiers on my side of the slope. At first, I thought I was just lucky, but as I looked further down, I realized why. The slope I was on ended in a section of very hard, slippery snow. I saw him too late. I tried to dodge to the side, but lost all control on the slippery surface. My momentum led me straight to a row of small trees that stopped my fall. They also broke my leg. Luckily, the medical team at the resort were well trained for such cases and quickly rushed me to Queenstown Hospital. Elaine fussed around me, cooing and talking, while the paramedics went about their business. It wasn't until I was in bed in the general ward that we both looked at each other and laughed. The pain in my leg was intense, but the irony of our situation got to us both. That's it, Bill. You definitely know how to spend a holiday abroad, Elaine jokes. The doctor said the fracture is not too serious, but given your age, you will have to stay here for at least 2 days, and then you will need crutches, maybe even a special boot. Hey, enough about age, old lady. I know this has made a major change to our plans, but we'll see what we can do. Sorry, Lainey. I should have taken into account my limitations on the slopes. But, and I emphasize this word, this is a great opportunity for you to do those things that you did not include in your plan, but were afraid of. Shopping, I noticed, was not on the list. I know you love shopping. Here's the perfect chance to do what you want without me waiting outside every store while you browse and don't buy anything. Go, woman, go and buy. As soon as I said this, we heard giggling and turned to see the charge nurse, Courtney, who was trying to suppress her laughter at my statement. Now Elaine laughed until she cried. This was one of the things I loved about our union with her. We could, after all these years together, still make each other laugh. It was a measure of our comfort with each other and our love for each other. Okay, my husband. Challenge accepted. 2 days of unlimited shopping for me while you relax in this beautiful hotel with room service. Agree? What do you think, Courtney? Will I be able to fill the next 2 days with endless shopping? Courtney looked at Elaine seriously and said, "This town is made for shopping and eating after shopping and partying after eating." Elaine replied, "Not sure about parties, but shopping and food sound great." She turned to me again. "Do you think you could limp into the vineyard with James? The threat of endless glasses of fine Pinot Noir can do wonders for your leg. Besides, if I spend money on great clothes and food, you should have your share of the fun too." I'm not sure, Lainey. Crutches can be a little restrictive and antibiotics may not work properly with alcohol. We'll have to wait and see. I'm serious, go buy it. Elaine came to my place for breakfast the next morning, and as soon as the shops opened, she left. "See you in the evening, dear," she said, leaving the room. Courtney, a nurse, looked at her energetic departure and commented, "I hope your credit card is charged, Mr. Yates. Everything in this city has a tourist price." She giggled as she left the room. I wasn't looking forward to spending a whole day watching TV in a lonely hospital room, but regular visits from nurses and kitchen staff offering snacks and tea helped pass the time. I easily got to know the different employees, especially Courtney, who was local. That evening, as I was about to enjoy the hospital dinner, Elaine came in all excited. Hello. How is your leg? You'll never guess who I met today. James. I think he's more of a shopaholic than me. We spent the entire day visiting each store. I promise I didn't max out my credit card. You should see the prices for everything. No, better not. Your accounting brain will explode. It was great to have a local guide. He knew all the right places to shop and eat. It all came out in one burst, and then she sat down, kissed me, and relaxed in the chair next to my bed. We looked at each other, and I answered her many questions. Hi, Lainey. I'm glad to see you. Yes, my leg is fine. It still hurts a little, but they give me painkillers. The swelling has gone down, so the doctor says that's a good sign. Maybe my age isn't such a big deal. Tell me about your shopping trip with dear old James. She began to detail the events of the day and how James had helped her. She also informed me that James had promised to do the same the next day. I said I trusted Elaine, however, I noticed that sparkle in her eyes as she talked about the day. I had a sneaking suspicion that her excitement wasn't just about the shoes she almost bought. She stayed until 8 in the evening. As she was leaving, she turned to me and said, "You know what, Bill? I didn't have that dream last night. He disappeared. Isn't that wonderful?" I nodded and waved goodbye to her. That night, I slept as if I was on illegal substances. Literally, my leg hurt a lot that night, which I was told was normal, so I got a painkiller shot. The next morning, I woke up surprised to realize two things. Firstly, it is late, and secondly, Elaine is sitting by the bed, looking very tired and nervous. "Hello, sleepyhead," she wheezed. I thought I would have to go shopping today without talking to you. The nurse said your leg was bothering you last night, and they had to knock you out with miracle drugs. How is she now? There was real concern in her eyes, and I felt sorry for her, so I downplayed the leg's condition a little. "Hey, Lainey," I mumbled sleepily. "I'm fine. Unfortunately, I may have to stay here longer. The doctor is concerned about some blood vessels. She came in last night after having her leg scanned. It seems there is a suspicion of a hematoma. Rest and medication will be my friends for the near future. What about you? You slept well? You look a little tired this morning. Has that dream returned?" There was a slight hesitation, which I did not pay attention to at that moment. No. I didn't have that dream, Bill. I am very happy about it. This dream has been part of my consciousness for so long that it now seems strange that it is not there. Anyway, I was planning on going shopping again today, but do you want me to stay with you? You look a little worse today. Lainey, I'll be in bad company all day, I think. I will fall asleep and wake up while the medications work. Go and do it, like we said, shop till you drop. Now go. I think the shops are already open. She left the room again, and I again fell into an anxious sleep and half-sleep. Nurse Courtney came in several times into my sleepy haze. "This wife of yours definitely knows how to dance, Mr. Yates, but a warning from an old local who has seen the views and knows the people here. This man she is dancing and spending time with is a snake. Be careful with him. I speak from personal experience." Then she left again. I wasn't sure if what I heard was a dream or not. However, I didn't have the conscious strength to fully process what I heard, so I just slept. I woke up to the smell of dinner waiting for me on the nightstand. Eating helped me come to my senses, which probably wasn't a good idea. My leg hurt like hell. After dinner, I settled down on the pillows in this strange half-lying, half-sitting position. At that moment, Elaine entered. She looked tired and a little nervous. "Hi, Bill. Sorry I'm a little late. How was dinner?" She kissed me on the cheek. "Hi, Lainey. Ordinary. They try, but it's never quite like homemade food. How was your day? Do I need to get a part-time job when we get home to pay the bills?" Elaine smiled. "No, Bill. James paid for most things today." As soon as she said that, she seemed to stop and didn't speak again. There was an awkward silence until Nurse Courtney came in to check on her. Courtney looked at Elaine with the silent, knowing look that women seem to learn from a very young age. Elaine eventually looked away and turned to me. "So, Bill, we have a vineyard and winery visit planned tomorrow. I don't think you can go. What a shame, Bill. That leg is really giving you trouble. Tomorrow I will come and spend the day with you." As she said this, she looked at Courtney, who almost nodded in approval. What is it between these two? I couldn't help but think. It's like some kind of secret code of gestures and nods. I'll have to ask Courtney what that means someday. Looks like I'll be here for a while longer. There was no point in asking Elaine. She was dying to go shopping. No, Lainey, I really appreciate you coming when you can. I miss your company, but I know that there is nothing more boring than sitting in a hospital. I know you want to be here with me, but this is also your vacation. I feel so bad that my stupid trick cost you time to rest. Go and enjoy your trip to the vineyard. Promise me that you will bring me a case of excellent wine that we can drink when I leave here." Elaine couldn't contain her excitement. "Okay, thanks, Bill. See you tonight. Try to be nice to the nurses." And then she left. Courtney stayed in the room for a while and was about to do something else when I called her. "Courtney, can I talk to you for a minute?" She hesitated, but stayed. "Sorry, Mr. Yates. I shouldn't have told you anything. I apologize if I said something inappropriate." "Courtney, you said something about my wife being a good dancer and having to be careful with that snake or something. Sorry, I was a little out of my mind when you said that. Is there something I should know? And how do you know that Elaine is a good dancer?" Courtney paled noticeably, but walked over and sat down next to the bed. "Mr. Yates, you won't like what I'm about to tell you. Last night my friends and I went to the Pink Pussycat, a popular nightclub here in town. All the locals know it as a cheap place to go if you just want to dance. Well, about 9 o'clock in the evening, I noticed Mrs. Bird Yates. She was with James Sloop. He's a well-known woman hunter here. He has a way of charming any woman he sets his sights on. He tried it with me once, and it was so good that I almost took off my clothes in his apartment. I almost fell under his spell. He is a real master in this matter. I watched them for a while, and it was very obvious that Mrs. Yates was close to him." She stopped. "I don't know how to say this without being harsh, Mr. Yates, but they were very close. They left around 11, and I don't know where. He still held her tightly and even stopped to kiss her while they were waiting for the taxi. I'm so sorry, Bill. Can I call you Bill? It's far beyond my nursing ethics to tell you this, but I feel you should know." She suppressed a small sob and left the room. "What the heck?" I said out loud. This information took me completely by surprise. Never in a million years would I have expected this from Elaine. There must be a completely innocent explanation for this. I trusted Elaine and did so throughout our married life. There was never the slightest hint, either explicit or implicit, that she might cheat on me. She was the epitome of a faithful, loving wife and partner. She was a wonderful mother to our 2 children. The children adore her for her devotion and love for them. I adored her for the same thing. She is my chosen partner in this life, and we, or at least I thought it was us, were looking forward to spending our twilight years together, enjoying what life had to offer together. This visit to James was supposed to be a one-time meeting. I liked this guy. He seemed reliable, and I was glad when he took Elaine under his wing while I was in the hospital. Still felt guilty about ruining our holiday with my stupid accident on the slopes. Was this a setup? There was no way that my accident was faked, so how did it all happen so quickly and on such a scale? Elaine was not a spontaneous person. She needs time to make any decision. This is definitely not like her. She met him just 2 days ago. The first meeting was with me. He paid almost no attention to her. If his intention was to win Elaine, he would have started from now on. My mind was in turmoil and my leg was hurting again. I called the nurse and Courtney came. "Are you always on duty here? You are always here when I am awake. What's the matter with you nurses?" Courtney smiled and said, "Mr. Yates, we have strange shifts. Sometimes I finish at 10:30 and start again at 6 in the morning. Sometimes we have split shifts. The system doesn't spoil us much, but fortunately we enjoy our job, taking care of unfortunate people like you. Now what can I do for you? Is your leg bothering you again or what I said earlier? She looked at me with understanding. I noticed a look of pity in her eyes. It wasn't what I needed, but I wasn't about to take my frustrations out on a nurse as dedicated and honest as Courtney. You're right. It's a combination of both, but I think only the leg can be treated with medication. I will call the doctor on duty and he will come to examine your leg. Just be patient, pardon the pun, as he has a few more patients. She was about to leave when I asked, Courtney, can I have my phone for a while? I need to make some calls. Certainly. They don't usually do this in a hospital, but since there are no bedside phones in this room, I'll see what I can do. You are an angel, Courtney, I said as she walked away. They've called me that before, Mr. Yates. The doctor came shortly after and examined my leg again. Your leg is healing, Mr. Yates, but there will be some residual pain until the blood vessels resume normal function. I am pleased that the swelling has subsided significantly. I'll give you some painkillers, but I don't think the injection is needed anymore. Rest, and you'll be out of here in a couple of days. The phone arrived shortly after that. The hospital orderly who brought it explained to me how to use it. He said all calls would be added to my bill. He also gave me a paper copy of the local telephone directory. I made the first call to our hotel. The receptionist was very polite and, fortunately for me, recognized me. The first thing she asked was how my leg was. We talked for a while about the accident and my recovery. Casually, I asked if my wife had been causing problems by having loud parties, etc. in the room while I was away. I tried to make it sound like a joke, and the receptionist continued in the same humorous tone. No, Mr. Yates, no big parties. She was just with your brother last night. When she returned at 11:30, she introduced him to me. He seemed like a very nice person. I think I've seen him here before. I thought he was local, but you know how it happens. We see so many people coming and going. When can we expect you back? I told her what the doctor said and hung up. This was not usual. Administrators usually do not give out such information freely. I wonder if, like Nurse Courtney, she suspects that something is going on and thus lets me know, but not directly. I was seething with rage as I connected all the facts together. Elaine all day shopping with James, who is very helpful. Elaine goes to dance with James. They get noticed when they dance too close. They kiss as they leave. They come to our hotel room together late at night. Elaine comes into the hospital room the next morning, tired. They spent the day together again today. This is not a good list. My emotions began to boil with anger, and I felt a slow explosion begin. Coupled with my complete disbelief in facts, it's a wonder I was in any logical state of mind at all. It takes me a long time to get angry because I usually find other ways to curb these feelings. The main way is usually to sit down with your life partner and go through all the problems. Was this possible now? How do I approach this with Elaine? If I was wrong, I would ruin our relationship by showing such complete distrust of her. She would be devastated by a false accusation in such a serious matter. The next call I made was to Elaine's cell phone. It went straight to voicemail, so I calmly asked how her shopping day was going, and that I would talk to her later when she came to the hospital that evening. I then called the hotel manager again and asked her to tell my wife to call me as soon as she returned to the hotel. I was about to give her the hospital number when she interrupted me. I can't do this, Mr. Yates. Mrs. Audi Yates and your brother arrived here about 10 minutes ago and went straight to your room, carrying a box of wine. They are there now. Do you want me to call the number? It was as if my heart stopped. My conscious mind focused on the administrator's voice and registered nothing else. They're in the room now, Mr. Yates. I couldn't believe it had gone this far. Elaine on illegal substances. What happened to my Elaine? The woman I had known for so long seemed to disappear and be replaced by someone who looked like Elaine, but had gone through a complete personality change. That's not her. That's not her. The manager's calm voice snapped me out of my trance. Mr. Yates, Mr. Yates, are you still here, Mr. Yates? I muttered some answer and hung up. I didn't know what to do. I was locked in this room while all this was happening out there, beyond my control. What was I going to do? As I sat there in a haze, Nurse Courtney came in to do my procedures. "Mr. Yates, you look terrible. Are you feeling good? Please lie down. I need to take your blood pressure and so on. Relax, please." She laid me down and put the cuff on my arm. She looked worried as the machine took its measurements. "Your blood pressure is too high, Mr. Yates. You need to relax. Is there something I can do?" Her caring look was sincere, but changed to a more worried one when she realized that I was making calls. "Is it because of what I told you earlier?" she asked. I nodded grimly and told her what I had learned. "Oh, Mr. D. Yates, Bill, I am so sorry. I knew I should have kept my mouth shut. It's all my fault. I started all these doubts and investigations." She was clearly upset now. I told her it wasn't her fault, and that if she hadn't told me what she knew, I would have found out another way. "Is there anything I can do, Bill?" I thought long and hard about this. What could a nurse stuck here in a hospital do? She was just as trapped here as I was. It occurred to me that there might be a way to get proof of what Elaine allegedly did. I needed proof before I could do anything. "Courtney, do your friends have free time now? I will pay generously for their time. I need them available for today and tomorrow." She thought and brightened, remembering someone. "Yes, Nicole, a nursing student, is currently on the weekend. I'm sure she could use a little extra cash. You know, like students, what do you want her to do?" I told her what I wanted, and she immediately called Nicole with my offer. It must have taken Nicole a while to be convinced, but when Courtney mentioned payment, generous payment, her objections seemed to disappear. "Crap, my leg hurts." That night, as expected, Elaine arrived bright as a button, clearly very excited. She had a smug, satisfied expression on her face. "Hi, Bill. Missed you today. How is your leg? You don't look too good." "Hello to you too, Elaine. My leg is a little better. The doctor said I'll be out in 2 days, so I'm sorry. You'll have to be alone a little longer." "Don't worry about it, Bill. I can take care of myself. By the way, the trip to the vineyard was amazing. We stayed there all day. It's amazing that I can walk straight after all the tastings. James and his brother gave me a tour of the entire operation. I'm so sorry you missed it. I am so tired. Do you mind if I leave early today? I need to go to bed. Tomorrow you and I were planning to go to Glenorchy, remember? The driver is still booked, so I'll go and promise to take a lot of photos for you." She got up to leave. "Of course, thank you, Elaine. See you tomorrow evening then. There's no point in coming here so early if you need to meet the driver. Love you and see you tomorrow." She lowered her eyes and replied, "Love you too, Bill." Now I knew for sure that everything that was said about Elaine was true. She lied to me straight out about being at the vineyard all day. She was not. She had been in the hotel room with James for at least half the day. The rest of her words began to take on a different meaning. All those tastings we had. "I need to go to bed. I am so tired. It's amazing that I can walk upright." All these words might be innocent, but in my current state of mind, they could not be trusted. What did Elaine, my Laney, do with my vision of her? I spoke directly with Nicole and explained in detail what I wanted her to do. She seemed almost excited about her task. I couldn't share her excitement. What I asked her to do would cost me a lot of money and possibly my marriage. I couldn't sleep that night. I tossed and turned, not because of my sore leg, but because of the constant pain in my heart. I was afraid of the pain that was about to fall on me and my family. How do I approach this with Elaine if this is true? This accusation goes far beyond any other argument we've ever had in terms of severity. The consequences of this will last forever. What about our children? How will this affect them? I know I can never trust Elaine again. I'd read about couples who were able to leave the past in the past, but damn, that got to the core of our relationship. To break exclusivity means to break love. Forever from now on, if this is true, Elaine's every word and action will have to be questioned and tested for accuracy. What would such a relationship be like? Not ones I can participate in, that's for sure. I need more proof. Well, the next 2 days will tell if Nicole can get what I need and fear. As it happens, 2 days have passed. The doctor allowed me to return home to the hotel if I promised to take care of myself. No more skiing for you this holiday, Mr. Yates, he joked as I left the hospital in a wheelchair, holding my brand new crutches. The receptionist at the hotel greeted me like a long-lost friend and commented, "I hope you can rest here, Mr. Yates. The room has been specially cleaned and refreshed for you." As she said it, she winked at me meaningfully without Elaine noticing. "You will also receive a welcome drink and snacks. Enjoy." She returned to her computer without even looking at Elaine. The elevator ride was gloomy. Elaine tried to make light conversation, but quickly realized that I was not in the mood. She might have thought it was because of my being in the hospital and not being able to enjoy my vacation so far. How wrong she was. As soon as I entered the room, I asked Elaine to turn on the TV. "Won't you sit with me before you watch it?" she asked. "I thought you'd seen enough of him in the hospital." "You're right, Elaine," I replied. "No Laney now. I need to plug something in, if you don't mind. I can't reach in this wheelchair. Here, this is a flash drive. Insert it into the side connector." By this time, the TV was on. I took the remote control and changed the input source to a flash drive. The screen remained blank. "Very cool, Bill," Elaine jokes, trying to be cheerful. "So this is what you were watching while I was shopping." "Elaine, please sit down." The tone of my voice warned her that something was wrong. As if in a trance, she sat up, staring at the blank TV screen. "Elaine, I want you to tell me what you did while I was in the hospital." Her face turned pale, but she gathered her strength. "I'm waiting, Elaine." "Bill, you know what I did. What is this all about? I went shopping, visited a vineyard, and went to Glenorchy today to take photos for you." She said it all in the same tone of a schoolgirl who had been caught doing something bad but didn't want to admit it. "Stop talking nonsense, Elaine," I screamed. This time she really turned pale. In our entire married life, I have never yelled at my wife in anger. "I want you to tell me what you and that bastard James did while I was in the hospital." "Bill, oh Bill," she began to sob. "We did spend some time together. Perhaps more than it should have, but it felt so right when we were together. We were having a good time. He's such a great conversationalist. I laughed at his jokes and enjoyed his knowledge of the city. He helped me so much while you were lying there. I'm sorry if I spent more time with him than I told you, but—" I didn't let her finish. "You think I want to hear about shopping and excursions?" I took the remote control and switched the slides to the first frame on the flash drive. He showed a photo taken last night at the Pink Pussy Club. Nicole did a great job capturing the action. "I wonder who these two are," I asked sarcastically. Elaine gasped. She couldn't take her eyes off the screen, slowly sobbing. Bill, I don't know what to say," she stammered. "Just say it was you and James at the club last night, Elaine," I shouted again. "Yes, Bill. Yes, it's us," Elaine almost whispered. I'm so sorry. That's all it was, Bill, I promised." I didn't let her finish. "Elaine, your promises mean nothing to me." I switched to the next slide. This time it was the couple from the previous photo outside the club. They were standing on the terrace, which was usually reserved for smokers. It was obvious they were having sex. What? What were you going to say now, Elaine? Were you going to promise that all it was a little too close on the dance floor? Is this what you were going to promise? Did you say promise? My anger was starting to take over, and if I didn't calm down, I might do something I regret. I had to take control of my emotions. Elaine was in tears by this time, sitting on the floor rocking from side to side, repeating, "No, no, no." I went to the bar and got a beer. Nothing for Elaine. My anger at her was now so deep that I no longer perceived her as Elaine. She was becoming that cheating, lying, worthless bitch. I continued. "Thanks for the photos from Glenorchy today, Elaine, but I have my own photos. They have nothing to do with the Lord of the Rings. I switched slides, lingering on each one long enough to see that they left no doubt about what James and Elaine had been doing all day. On this third slide, Elaine collapsed on the floor. She lost consciousness. I was worried about her health, but my anger at her was stronger. I doused her face with water from an ice bucket from the minibar. Elaine came to, choking and wailing. She hugged herself and curled into the fetal position, still on the floor. I picked her up and casually threw her on the bed. She began repeating in a monotone voice, "No, Bill, I am so sorry. I love you. Your promises and love mean nothing to me now, Elaine. I want to know how this happened and why. How were you able to change our marriage so quickly and so openly? Our children. My God, what will we tell the children? Why, Elaine? Just tell me why. Did I do something to make you disrespect not only me, but our love for each other? Our love, our beautiful love that we enjoyed every day. Why did you destroy all this? For the sake of sex with this bastard. Why, Elaine, tell me why," I screamed again. "The hotel management will come soon if I don't calm down." "How did it happen, Elaine?" I whispered. "Tell me how. I always loved you and thought you felt the same about me." She continued to hug herself as if she found safety in it. "I don't know, Bill. I honestly don't know. One minute I felt great in James' company, and the next minute I began to succumb to his charms. He knew all the right words and actions. He made me feel like a queen, a princess, his princess. The words he spoke always sounded perfect. I wasn't going to succumb to his charms. It just happened. I think it started on that first day of shopping. After our night at the club the night before, I felt very comfortable with him. My guard was down. Bill, I'm so sorry, but it took me back to our teenage days and reminiscing about our tour. I was thrilled to feel this way again with him. The more he talked, the less I thought about you." Another attack of crying and almost sobbing. "How could I forget about you, Bill? Now, looking back, I'm ashamed of my thoughts, or rather, the lack of thoughts. That night, he took me dancing at the Pink Pussy Club. Before, I would never have dared to go to such a place without you. But again, James knew all the right words. He calmed me down immediately. He poured me a drink, not that I was drunk, but I definitely felt intoxicated. I think it was the combination of his constant compliments, the alcohol, and his overwhelming intimacy that got me hooked. Bill, how could I do this? You are the love of my life, and I could still fall so low. When he finally left me at the hotel at some ungodly hour, I spent what seemed like hours in the shower. I wanted to wash away the stain of what happened, especially before I saw you again. I almost died when you told me how tired I looked when you saw me the next morning. But Bill, I still wanted to see James again that day. What is wrong with me?" She began rubbing her hands and, alarmingly, hitting her head with her open palms, as if she wanted to wake up from some terrible dream. I still wanted to see him again. I damn sure wanted to see him again. He picked me up outside the hospital that morning. I fell under his spell again. We had breakfast in some secluded cafe off the main street. It was very intimate and more suitable for a young couple than for me and him, but I felt like we were a couple. How disgusting is that? I actually enjoyed his attention and wanted more, and he knew it. He played me like a musical instrument. He was the master and I was his toy. He knew exactly when I was ready and wasted no time inviting me to his apartment. Like a robot, I agreed. No other thoughts came to my mind. It was as if I had become different. A true, loving, and faithful mother and wife has disappeared. Well, that's what happened. I had to stop. I should have seen you. The feeling of guilt for what I had done started to set in, and I left there as soon as I could. I returned home, took a shower, and tried to collect my thoughts. What have I done? Stop, Elaine. What you did was betray everything we promised each other. I could barely speak. The details of this scoundrel's sexual exploits were incredibly difficult to comprehend, especially because it was with my wife, my love. You came to the hospital every day and every night, pretending everything was fine while you cheated behind my back at every opportunity. This can't be fixed, Elaine. This can't be fixed. I don't know what we should do now, but I don't think I can ever forget what I saw and heard. I wanted to hear from you what you and James, the bastard, were doing. When you tried to smooth it over at the beginning of our conversation, I realized that part of you still thinks it's okay what you did. What makes a man, like a creep, think it's okay to trample on someone's marriage to get some sex? I learned that he has a reputation here in Queenstown. He has destroyed countless marriages. That's why his wife divorced him in the first place. He cheated on her from the very beginning. Elaine then did what became the final nail in the coffin of our marriage. She began to protect him. Bill, no. This is wrong. I asked James why he was so focused on me. He said that he had been in love with me since we met as teenagers. He said the worst thing he did was let me leave then. If he had money, he would have followed me home and continued our relationship, which we began so innocently then. He always thought about me, even when he was married. He was never happy with this marriage. He wanted more, which probably explains why he cheated. When I contacted him about our visit, he was delighted, and that's why we ended up here now. She looked at me again with pleading eyes. I couldn't believe this nonsense. Elaine really takes his side in all this. She tried to justify their actions based on a failed relationship many years ago. Incredible. And you, Elaine, why did you decide to do what you did? Don't tell me you felt the same way he did. That you always felt like you missed out on something when your relationship didn't go any further in your youth. I really want to know. Elaine began rubbing her hands again, as she always did when she was concentrating. Bill, it was like he turned on a switch in me that first day. I went back to my teenage years thanks to him. Like a switch, it was either on or off. When he turned on that switch, it was on, and we, that is, you and me, were off. I can't explain it any other way. There was no room for us when James filled my head. She began to let her anger at her situation overcome her guilt. I've always enjoyed sex with you, Bill, but this was different. She stopped, realizing what she had just said. This conversation was over. I've heard and seen enough. This last comment left my emotions in a state of despair at what my love just said and did. You need to leave, Elaine. You need to leave now. I'll call the reception, and in 10 minutes a taxi will be waiting for you. Pack your things and leave. I don't care where you go. The main thing is away from me. I turned away from her. Elaine hesitated, but knew not to argue. She gathered her things, all the while muttering, "No, Bill, you are my life. Without you, my life is complete. My life is over. My life is over." The taxi arrived, and she left. The hotel receptionist looked at her with a knowing smile as she said goodbye to Mrs. Yates. She had seen this many times before, but she still had to be polite to the hotel customers. I thought about Elaine's words and felt more and more anger. I knew there was one more thing I needed to do. "Courtney, how are you? Glad to catch you not at work." "What?" "No, nothing good happened, and that's why I'm calling. Can you get me a list of all the couples whose marriages were ruined by that bastard, I mean James?" "Okay, thanks for trying. By the way, tell Nicole I'm very impressed with her work. I'll be at the hotel if anything works out for you." "Okay, bye." 2 days passed before Courtney left a large envelope for me at the front desk. When I opened it, I realized how much work she put into it. "Courtney, you are an angel," I whispered to no one. There were almost 30 pairs in the envelope. Some were still married, but most were separated or divorced. Courtney provided phone numbers for almost every person affected. It was gold. I had calls to make. I boarded a plane home 2 days later. I still went to Glenorchy. I wanted my visual memory of the place to be clean, innocent, and not dirty like the photos Nicole took. When I returned home, I contacted lawyers to begin divorce proceedings. My children were not happy with how everything happened. They were shocked to the core. None of them could understand how their mother, their reliable, stable mother, could fall so low. I didn't go into details. I'll leave it to the bitch, that's what I called her now. Bitch, female dog. Dogs are known for their animalistic approach to sex, which is why I chose this term. I didn't just swear in anger. I put a label, coldly and logically, on what I saw. It still completely baffles me how a warm, loving, caring, devoted person could so quickly descend into animal behavior at the hit of a switch, to use the words of a bitch. It tormented me to the point that it took over my days. I eventually sought counseling for this and other issues our divorce brought with it. It helped me cope with my anger and confusion over this whole sordid affair. But it didn't help with my loneliness. There was no more laughter in this house. Almost every morning I would wake up, go to the kitchen, and put down 2 cups of coffee, expecting Elaine to run in and tell me about her dreams. God, how I missed old Laney, but not according to those dreams. According to her damn dreams. John and Mary, bless their hearts, spent as much time with me as possible. Maybe I'll sell the house and move closer to where they go to school. They had become city dwellers and had no intention of returning anytime soon. Our divorce went smoothly. I was able to buy out Elaine's share of the house. I collected all her things and sent them to New Zealand, where she stayed with the scoundrel. I may have accidentally peed on some of her clothes, okay, all of them, before I packed them into trash bags and boxes. Every photo she asked for I carefully edited so that it was just her, oh, and a picture of the bitch. I thought this would be a measure of justice. The bitch pissed on our marriage, so. I heard from Courtney some time after our divorce was finalized. It turns out that everything was not so good in the country of the scoundrel and the bitch. James decided that he could now cheat on Elaine. Old habits die hard, and Elaine didn't like that. Funny, right? The cheater didn't like being cheated on. Well, it turns out James the bastard didn't like being put in his place. He hit her several times. All it takes is for Elaine to end up in the hospital, hence Courtney's knowledge of the state of their affairs. Courtney told me that in her dream, Elaine repeated over and over again, "My life is over, my life is over." Elaine became depressed and began taking anti-anxiety medications. The newspaper article only mentioned the incident in the latter part of the international news section. A fire broke out in an apartment belonging to Mr. James Sloop, presumably the result of a botched robbery. It is believed that a group of armed men, unknown to police, broke into the apartment and attacked the owner, destroying the apartment. In their haste to leave, they set the apartment on fire. It is not known that the woman was in the apartment in the dream. Both residents died on the spot. I read the article and felt a weight lift from my shoulders. I didn't want them to die, but sometimes karma can be cruel. Of course, karma sometimes needs help. Of the 20 or so deceived men I contacted before leaving New Zealand, many began drinking together at a local bar and discussing the person who had ruined their marriages. I put down the newspaper and said to the spirit of my dead ex-wife, "You were right, my dear. Your esp was somewhat accurate. You really saw James, and now your life is over. Truly finished. But when you saw James, you didn't see that our life, into which we had invested so much love and time, was also over.